How to win at Dungeons and Dragons. Today we are going to talk about the best way to award experience. The best way to level up your players' characters. And that is the old standby as laid out by Gary Gygax himself. XP for GP. This has developed a bit of a negative reputation over the years. A lot of bad actors have insisted that this is a bad design for a game, and we'll talk about why we call those bad actors, and we'll talk about why XP for gold pieces will improve not just your game. It won't just make things at your table better, it will make you a better person. Now that is a pretty tall order, but I think I'm up to it. Before we get into why XP for GP is the moral choice, I want to talk about some of these nitty-gritty details. We have to make sure that we are all playing from the same page 85. So let's just take a look at the critical passage right here. Treasure must be physically taken out of the dungeon or lair and turned into a transportable medium or stored in the player's stronghold to be counted for experience points. There's a lot to unpack here. Treasure must be physically taken to the player's stronghold to be counted for experience points. All right, now what does that mean? Now, first of all, we should talk about the fact that you do get experience for slaying monsters, not just for overcoming them, but I think it actually says here the following is for determined slain opponents. So you can kill people, that's fine. But if you can trick them out of their money, get it out of the dungeon, then you gain the experience for having done that. Now, why would he hammer that message home? And down here, we actually have an explanation. In this paragraph, note in bold, players who balk at equating gold pieces to experience points should be gently but firmly reminded. That's what this video is, a gentle but firm reminder that in a game, certain compromises have to be made. While it is more realistic for clerics to study holy writings, for magic users to do magic stuff, fighters to do fighty stuff, and thieves to steal stuff, blah, 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 it says here, these are all very realistic, but conducive to non-game boredom. These are realistic, but they're conducive to non-game boredom. I repeated it because that's so important. Listen, you could open up a casino, skim 10% off the top, and come out with a lot more money. That's not an adventure. An adventure is when you go up against the forces of evil, when you crawl down into a dank hole, loot the place, and get it back home. You level up. This is not pencils and paperwork or whatever that little comic is in here. This is an adventure game, and equating gold to experience points, requiring players to get gold or die trying, is a way to drive adventure. And not only that, but it drives adventure in a very important way. And I don't think very many people have analyzed this particular style of D&D in this particular way. Because the key factor here you have to understand is, oh wait, I'm still getting a little ahead of myself. There's one other thing I want to talk about. A little bit of a caveat, just to kind of forestall some of the objections that may arise. I am not arguing for a purely mathematical approach to experience points, wherein one gold is one experience point, and that you calculate all of this with the precision of a certified public accountant working for the IRS. Quite the contrary. Over here, in fact, the very first thing that Gary says when it comes to experience is the judgment factor is inescapable with respect to weighting experience points for the points gained from slaying monsters and or gaining treasure. You have to consider the challenge involved. And in point of fact, Gary leaves the door open for tricking or outwitting monsters or overcoming tricks and or traps. Placed to guard treasure must be determined subjectively with a level of experience balanced against the degree of difficulty you assign to gaining the treasure. In other words, a 10th level fighter that kills 5 goblins should not receive the same amount of experience, even for the same amount of treasure, that a 1st level fighter would gain from that same experience. The challenge was not there. The awarded experience points are not there. So, just be aware that I understand that there is some subjectivity, and that's interesting because I think most people gloss over that. They feel that this is not subjective enough and it does not allow the dungeon master enough power. Asterisk, we're coming back to that phrase, does not give the dungeon master enough power. So, before we talk about why XP for GP is good. There's one other thing I want to do. I want to contrast this with the alternative form of awarding experience, and that, of course, is the milestone. Now, a lot of guys have come up with systems for awarding levels at milestones. I think it may even be part of the official 5th edition of this wonderful game. In milestone play, the Dungeon Master points out objectives for the players to achieve. He has written his story. He has told the players, here is the thing that you have to do. Here's the hoop that you have to jump through. And if you can jump through that hoop, then you will get the cookie of a new level. If you refuse to jump through my hoops, you get nothing. Nothing, sir. Good day. In other words, it puts all of the power for determining the challenges that the players face, both the degree of difficulty and the nature of those challenges, into the hands of the Dungeon Master. It takes the players out of the decision-making process, it removes their agency, and it hands all of that over to the Dungeon Master. This is not a game. The only game is, can I please the judge enough? It's no more a game than gymnastics. Except at least in gymnastics, there are multiple competitors who are competing against each other. In Dungeons and Dragons, in a cooperative effort such as this typically is, particularly, get out of here, bug, with the delving dungeons aspect of things, you are at least, even if you are not cooperating within the campaign framework, you are generally, even if you are competing within the campaign framework, you are generally cooperating within an individual session. You are pursuing the same goal, and if you meet that goal, everyone gets experience points for that. Okay, if you are not doing that, right? If you're not playing the game, if you are playing the Dungeon Master, you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons. We've talked about all of this before in one of our many previous videos. That's not really what we're talking about today, but it is very closely related because that's the key to experience points for gold pieces. It empowers the players, and it empowers them in a very interesting way. And not only that, but it allows the Dungeon Master to run the game with the assurance that the players are fully invested in not just the outcome, but also in the process. If you are playing this game as written and as designed, then the Dungeon Master, by use of these wonderful random tables, both urban and wilderness. YouTube, we gotta watch out for the, we gotta watch out for the. I should really put some black bar stickers on her, huh? If you're using these, your players are wandering through the wilderness. They're looking for dungeons. They have a couple of different dungeons to choose from. Suddenly, the players have a wealth of opportunities. They have a wealth of challenges. And based on the information provided, based on their history with the game, they will understand the risks associated with those challenges. Over here, we have a village of goblins. Over here, we have a village of orcs. And over here, we have a village of ogres. They know which one is the hard one. They will be able to pursue the challenge that they feel comfortable with. These random tables will provide a wealth of options. Where are they? Back here. They will provide a wealth of options. They will provide a long and glorious menu from which the players can choose. The Dungeon Master will naturally and organically, through the use of the other rules of this game, present the players with far more challenges than they could ever hope to pursue. They have to be very selective about which of these layers and dungeons they delve. They have to make the choice. Is this too risky? Is this too safe? They have to find the sweet spot, and they have to live with the consequences. You, as the Dungeon Master now, rather than trying to prepare milestones, rather than hoping, well, I know Joe is running a magic user, so I know he wants high-level spells, so I will tell him there's rumors, and I will build an adventure that they have to go into the dungeons beneath the city library in hopes of getting a reward. Oh, no. You don't design the adventure. You let the game build the options. And now it's up to the Bill playing the magic user to choose which of those challenges to face. The beauty of this system is that as the dungeon master, you know Bill is fully invested in that adventure. He chose it. Out of all of the adventures he could have chosen, out of all of the random encounters they have faced, out of all of the planned encounters that you put in their way, you said to Bill, what do you want to do? And here's where we slide on over to a bit of the old moral question. You see, the dirty little secret of this game is that the guys who are most likely to write articles for magazines, to write helpful advice, to redesign the game in their own image, I'm looking at the OSR here, the people most likely to write that are the people most likely to serve as the dungeon master. They're the people most likely to believe that of everyone sitting at the table, they are the smartest, they are the best, and they are the ones that deserve the most power. Because as long as you empower the dungeon master to do what the dungeon master wants, then the players will just naturally be dragged along for a good time based upon the genius of the dungeon master. XP for gold pieces is a leveling agent. There's probably some irony in the fact that one of the, that you've got this incredibly generous style of play that's being advocated by the guys with the most swagger. The guys who know they're doing this right are also the most generous with the game. They turn the reins of the game over to the table to decide what's next. What are we doing next? Oddly enough, the people who hold themselves up as some paragon of virtue are the ones who are most likely to say, yeah, I'm totally generous. You'll do it my way, and I rule this table with an iron fist, and if you don't like my decisions, GTFO. Don't be that guy. Sit down with your players and say, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to go north, south, east, west? Let's see what we encounter in each of those directions, and then you can decide which dungeon you want to go to. This is the way that you play the game as a generous spirit. And don't worry about the fact that, well, I haven't prepared anything. Gary has prepared everything you need right here in this tome. You've got the 3 core books. You know how to use them. You have an incredible sense of imagination, and you are much better at improvising encounters on the fly than you give yourself credit for. Oddly enough, this is the style of improv that you should be working towards, not the style of improv that says, which funny voice should I use? That has its place. It's not a bad thing to use funny voices. In fact, if you can use a funny enough voice that you can distract the dungeon master as a player, if you can throw him off his game, yeah, go for it. I say go for it. In fact, as a little adjunct, one of my friends pointed out, the previous episode of this, we talked about the harlot table. He will insist upon pushing the descriptions of an encounter with a harlot to the extreme point of throwing the dungeon master off the game so that he'll be flustered for the rest of the episode. I guess that's kind of a Chad way to play the game. It's not for me. I don't want to get into the gross stuff, but I will admit that that's a valuable contribution to the conversation we're having around on social media. Now, there's another thing that I got to talk about here. And that is the process by which what many characterize as money-grubbing Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, you just care about gold. Well, kind of, right? You have to remember that gold is an intermediate step. The love of money may be the root of all evil. And as a wise man once said, money can't buy happiness, so I guess I'll have to rent it. It's not even necessarily the gold that you're interested in, and it's not even necessarily the gold for the experience, but it's what the gold can buy, and it's the way that the gold can unlock new modes of play, and it's the way that the gold helps you slowly and incrementally build not just the individual's power as far as his own, the work he does with his own 2 hands, but also, as we've talked about recently, the way it builds his power to affect the world around him by purchasing additional troops in the case of fighters, by purchasing additional spell components in the case of magic users. Do you know that if you want to resurrect one of your friends, you need a diamond worth, I believe it's 10,000 gold pieces. Now, some will tell you, hey, I'm a super smart dungeon master, and I'm going to create this whole epic storyline by which you have to go from point A to point B and talk to guy C to get key D to open door E, and I've got this wonderful railroad for you to follow, and at the end of that railroad is a 10,000 gold piece diamond. See, that's an epic. Now, that is an epic story. Yeah, sure. I mean, you can write an epic story, and by all means, write it, slap a cover on it, and sell it to me. I want to play the game. And I'm going to tell my dungeon master I need a 10,000 gold piece diamond, and I need it quick because, Bob the fighter, Orcish Bob, got kebabbed. How do I get my hands on one quick? And the dungeon master says, well, listen, I mean, there's probably one in a town a week away, but you're going to have to expend a teleport spell, maybe a wind walk, and it's going to cost X amount of money. And oh, by the way, there may be another one over here. The point is, or he may say, yeah, I mean, a couple of guys that can get one for you, but it's going to cost you. And rather than have to fight to find that one diamond, you may need to, and this is, I guess the point is, it may sound like I'm describing the exact same process. You may need to do a favor for Joe over here to get that. The point is that rather than having pre-designed a long epic quest, you may even use the rules as written. Well, I need to do some research as a player. Which creatures in the monster manual are most likely to have gems and jewels? Oh, the gnomes? I know where there's a gnome village. We may need to put a strike force together. I may need to put together a team of thieves, right? I may be looking for the A team of thieves to go hit the vault. And don't get greedy. I just need the diamond. I may need to hope for the results to come up properly. I may grab that 50 gold, that 10,000 gold piece diamond. And you know what? I know I'm going to need to revive somebody. It comes up on the random table. You just happen to hit that 10,000 gold piece diamond. Are you going to sell it, or are you going to stick it in a vault? That's an important question. In regular D&D, you would just say, oh, well, I erased 10,000 gold pieces because I bought the diamond. In this D&D, you better hope you find one before you need it. And once you find one, you better hope you've built a proper safe house. Build the safe house before you need it. Build the vault and put some traps in before you need it. This is all interlocking and it's all interrelated. And the point I'm driving at here is that sometimes these little rules that you think you can improve, because I just pulled it, I just took this one card out of the house of cards and wow, the whole thing fell down. No, put the card back, right? It interlocks in a lot of interesting ways. Using XP for GP will allow you to naturally develop those epic storylines from the players. The players will drive that storyline. It doesn't have to be written from level 1 to level 5 right off the bat. In fact, planning for that and preventing the other guy, people don't think, okay, so the wizard has a 10,000 gold piece diamond and we're going to go steal it. Yeah, but what if the player is that wizard with a 10,000 gold piece diamond? What if, remember, we're using 1 day equals in the real world equals 1 day in the campaign. What if Orcish Bob is in this adventuring party and the player in that adventuring party realizes that his other wizard has that 10,000 gold piece diamond? Hey, DM, can we go steal it from my other character? And the DM says, well, you can make a hit on your other PC. Yeah, sure. You can actually use these principles of getting the gold to get the XP to get the level, and also using the gold to build the stronghold that now is a dungeon for other players to use. Right? This all interlocks. And the best thing is, if you build the stronghold to protect the diamond and other people, other friends of yours, get to go through the dungeon that your character made and have a great time, I can't think of anything more generous than that. I can't think of a better way to take care of your bros. Thank you. See, even Biscotti approves of this plan. And if you don't believe me, you got to believe Biscotti because she's a total sweetheart. I think I've laid out the point enough. I think you get the message here. I think you understand how deep XP for GP is at this point. And I think discussing it from a perspective of, let's think about what this really means, not just within the context of the rules, but what it means within the context of the social order and how using XP for GP makes you not just play a better game, but it makes you a more considerate player, regardless of which side of the DM screen you sit on. Until next time, I'm Mr. Wargaming, and I'm praying for you.